Off air.
Now we're live.
Now we're live. Hello, YouTube land.
Hello. Welcome to the Want to Grow On live show. I have to open this thing.
All right. I wish there was a way to see the chat without looking at the live stream itself.
Yeah, I guess it's not possible.
All right.
Oh, I can see the chat.
So we sent out a call for questions, things that people were curious about, and we got quite a few responses.
Y'all did not disappoint.
Let's shall we just jump into this first one here?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. So Jessica says, I get advertisements for growing my own microgreens in the kitchen. As I live in an apartment, this seems like it might be a good idea. What do you think? And what is the best way to make sure you are getting really fresh and healthy foods if you don't have land?
Okay, this is a great question. I don't know anything specific about products that like advertise microgreen growing.
Okay. Can we really quick define microgreens? Are we just talking about like tiny lettuce?
Yeah,
it's not tiny lettuce. No.
It's not tiny lettuce.
No. So when you grow plants, you have a seed, right, that you will plant. And then in that seed, there is like a little embryo in the seed. And that embryo, when it's exposed to the right conditions, it can be a lot of different things, will start to grow. And it'll basically burn those starch storage in the seed itself and push up and grow out of whatever media it's in. And if you've ever grown anything from seed at your house or anywhere, I guess, you'll know that when you first plant a seed and it first sprouts, the first leaf or two leaves that come up don't look like regular leaves. And that's because they're not. So inside of the seed, in the embryo, we call that embryo the cotyledon. It'll kind of burn those fat storage, it'll push up, and then it kind of unfolds itself. So these like first two leaves that you get are not actually leaves, they're what we call cotyledons. And it's because they're in the seed themselves. So they're usually the shape of the seed. Whatever seed you're planting, the cotyledons are the same shape as the seed because they're in the seed. And then you'll get what we call the first true leaf, which is like the actual leaf that the plant is producing. And it looks totally different from the cotyledons. So when you eat microgreens, that's what you're eating, is the cotyledons, and that just like first sprout that's coming out of the seed.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah. I don't know about any products that sell microgreens, but I love microgreens. Okay. They are, at the same time, both very, very healthy for you and a total scam in a very good way. It's great.
Wait, a scam in a good way? How can something be a scam in a good way?
Great. It's so good. I think it's so good. So microgreens are extremely healthy for you. They're like way healthier than normal greens, normal lettuce. But you also typically eat a lot less of them. So I don't know off the top of my head like the trade-off nutritionally. Like microgreens have more nutrition per ounce, but you cannot eat as many microgreens as you will eat like lettuce or something like that. So I don't know if like per serving what the nutritional breakdown is because the serving sizes for standard greens are so much bigger. But they are a healthy food. They're very healthy for you. But they're so expensive. And if a farmer gets into microgreens, they make a lot of money, which is why it's kind of a scam. Because when you have microgreens, like your turnaround time is like 1 to 2 weeks for your crop, which is like the fastest ever. Yeah. So like if you have an infestation in your greenhouse and like all of your microgreens die, you just like wait a few days and then you start another crop and then 2 weeks later, then you have a payday. And you get a lot of money because it's so cheap. So expensive. Yeah. Because the microgreens themselves are so expensive and it's not terribly expensive to produce microgreens, especially if you already have the infrastructure. So if you're getting into microgreens, you have to like build a greenhouse because they're exclusively grown in greenhouses. And you have to like set up all of that infrastructure. But if you already have that set up, it's way way worth it to just get into microgreens if there is a market. Oftentimes it's kind of hard to find a market for microgreens just because they're quite so expensive, and they're not, like, they're seen as kind of like a niche health food. They're not really commonly eaten. I met a farmer one time who was selling microgreens for lunches to a Catholic school in Santonia, and that man had a lovely lifestyle. It was great.
Wow. Must have had a lot of greenhouse space.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you don't honestly need that much greenhouse space. Like, you can produce a lot of microgreens in a small amount of space because you can just, they're very easy. They're very small plants. It doesn't take a lot of space.
well,
So yeah, if you grow in your house, like, it's not hard to just like basically seed out a seed, and then you just chop it and eat it.
can she grow them in a kitchen?
Yeah, you should be able to. I mean, if you can grow any plant in a kitchen, then you can grow a microgreen. Like, a microgreen is just having a seed, like, pop out a little seedling, and then that's it. And you don't have to keep it alive after that. You eat it.
I feel like you need to have a lot of those to have a meal, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like, you usually when you buy them in like a little clamshell, and it's like per weight, very small amount of food.
Okay.
It's very nutritionally dense, but you just can't eat a lot of it.
Well, then she had a follow-up question. What is the best way to make sure you're getting really fresh and healthy foods if you don't have land?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say, because full disclosure, this is my mother, so I
Yeah.
am very familiar with her apartment, and she has lemon trees and rosemary, and just she is doing a great job of growing without land. But it's really complicated. I think we should make sure we all know how to do that.
I'm sorry. Did you say she has lemon trees
Yeah, I'm so proud of Catherine's mom.
inside?
Yeah.
It produces like 2 lemons. A bird stole one this year.
Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
I wonder what a bird's gonna do with a lemon.
Pucker? Can birds pucker? I guess not.
No, they don't have lips.
Can you imagine just a little bird beak trying to go? "Arr"? I don't know.
Yeah. What was the question? How to get
Fresh and healthy food.
fresh, healthy food if you don't have land. Yeah. So there's some different ways you can do it. So, like, if you're in an apartment, there's some veggies that are really easy to grow indoors versus needing to put them in the ground or in outside. So some things that work really well are leafy vegetables, are super easy to grow indoors. Microgreens you can do indoors pretty easily. And then solanums, like all of your nightshade plants, with the possible exception of potatoes, might be a little messy to grow inside. But like eggplant, chilies, tomatoes, all of that is pretty easy to grow inside because they are self-pollinating. Whereas some other things, like if you did a squash inside, I mean, one, that's a very large plant, but also if you do a squash inside, like you have a male flower and a female flower, so you need some kind of pollinator to fertilize the flowers. Otherwise, you have to get down there and like move the pollen by hand. It's not fun. That's what they do in China because they don't have enough bees, so they hire people with feathers to pollinate plants.
In a documentary.
Yeah, so tomatoes is a good option. You can do garlic really easily. You can do herbs really easily.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. Our next question is from Starfruit patron Lindsay.
Oh.
And she says, what is a berry?
Okay. Lindsay has been asking me this question for approximately like 5 years, maybe. It's a long-term joke. I wonder if she is around. Because this is a very important question.
Oh, yeah.
So, things that are berries. Tomatoes.
What?
Bananas.
I don't like this.
What?
Things that are not berries. Strawberries.
I knew that.
Blackberries. Mulberries. Raspberries.
What? Whoa. Raspberries are not berries?
No, they're not.
Like, by what definition? I guess by botanical definition, they're not berries.
Yeah, botanically, they're not berries.
What the Fracklejack is a berry?
So, we've talked a little bit about this in one episode. I don't remember which one actually. But you basically have different definitions of kinds of fruits based on the morphological characteristics. Maybe we talked about this in plant tax. So botanists and agronomists and horticulturalists use these like names, these categories, to differentiate based on the characteristics of a fruit. So the super category is you have dry and you have fleshy. So like under dry, this includes things like nuts. This includes things like samaras, which are like, if you've ever seen a fruit on like a maple tree or an elm tree, I think has samaras. They're like these little things that'll kind of spin around and they like float and they're very kind of papery.
Do that again.
But they're like really like papery and they fly around a lot. So that's the dry side. On the fleshy side, this is anything that's kind of has a higher water content. So I think the distinction is based on water content. And so it's things that are squishy. So we have a category called Hesperidiums, which is a category of fleshy fruits that have a leathery rind with, I think it's like with like a something about oil, like the amount of oil in the outer layer, and that is citrus fruit, right? And those are our Hesperidiums. And for that one particularly, there's only Hesperidiums in the citrus family that are agronomically relevant. There might be some more like random ones way out in some other plant, but in terms of the ones that we eat, that's just citruses. We have pomes, which are things like apples and pears, where you have a bigger fleshy fruit and you have seeds in the middle of it and it's multiple seeds. And there's like the endosperm is kind of soft. So when you bite into an apple, at some point you like hit that kind of, there's like a barrier in the very middle near where the seeds are, but before you get to the seeds. Or like if you cut an apple in half, you can kind of see there's like a little circle around the seeds. Yes, no? Yeah.
No, I'm familiar with the
so that's like the definition for that. We also have cucurbits, which are things with like a hard outside and many seeds. So this is things like pumpkins and squash and cantaloupe. And then we have berries. So berries, the definition is it has to have developed from multiple ovules but one flower. So basically this is, multiple ovules but one flower. Yeah. So it develops from a flower that has one ovary. And inside of the ovary, there's like different chambers, right? And so when that flower gets fertilized, it will grow out and you will be able to see there's like different sections in it, like in a tomato. And then in those different sections is where you'll have the seeds. And then you also have like a soft outer layer, so you can like bite it. So that's why it includes things like tomatoes, things like bananas, because you can bite a banana. It includes things like blueberries are a berry, and gooseberries and stuff like that are all berries. But when you look at things like raspberries or blackberries, these are actually a aggregate fruit, meaning that they come from multiple ovaries.
Okay. Well, thank goodness there are at least a couple of things that are berries that actually have berry in the name.
Yeah. It's true. Yeah, if you think of anything that's like kind of roundish, like a blueberry or a gooseberry, if it's like round, then it's probably a berry. Cranberries are berries. But if it's got like that kind of shape where it's got multiple little chambers on it, like a raspberry, that is not a berry.
I see.
Technically.
Well, Azialif Aziz asked us what the definition of a berry was. Hopefully we just answered it.
I hope so. Yeah. If you need more clarification, feel free to ask, because I love to talk about this. I got an A+ in my economic botany class, and this was a lot of the conversation in that class.
Way to humble brag.
Yeah. It was not good, actually. I was way too into that class in a way that made me so uncool to everyone else in that class. One time I had a
At least
professor.
you got a good grade.
One time I had a professor. This was in an entomology class, and he called me out so hard for being a huge nerd. He like walked into the classroom first day of class, and he's like, "Listen, this is a really hard class. I've put a lot of material into it. It requires a lot of hands-on work, and there's a really intense textbook. I'm not expecting you to read the textbook. Hallie, I know you will."
Wow.
Okay,
Yeah,
did you read the textbook?
I did. It was interesting. I still have it over here.
Well, way to go. All right. Um, so the next question comes from Sean in Australia.
Cool.
Sean says, are sausages really packed with the leftover parts of animals we'd rather not talk about?
So I did not know that much about this when we got this question. And Catherine did a little bit of research. Catherine, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, I can totally take this one.
This is very interesting to me. As a big Sweeney Todd fan, that's kind of my understanding of sausages. And also someone who doesn't eat a lot of meat.
So from what I could tell, there are not a lot of sausages made out of revenge victims from demonic barbers.
Bummer.
So I think that frame of reference, that's not really a bummer.
Is he actually demonic? He's just evil, right? He's not actually like possessed by a demon.
Fleet Street. It's in the name.
For the non-musical theater fans of the audience, she's referencing Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, the Stephen Sondheim musical.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one, based on a true story. But so what is actually in sausages is mostly, yes, it is kind of the head, the organs, the parts of the animal that you wouldn't really want to put on a plate in front of you, but that are still good. I heard something one time about how with a pig you can eat everything but the squeal.
I've heard that before.
So it basically is the parts of the pig besides the squeal that you don't want to think about the fact that you ate. However, people will add stuff to the sausage like starches and potatoes, either to stretch them or to create a different kind of texture.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just really depends on where you are, especially in the UK and in other countries, especially countries that were formerly colonized by the UK.
Mm.
They will put blood into their sausage for blood sausage.
That makes sense. I've had blood sausage here in New Mexico.
Yeah.
It's a common thing.
Yeah. That also is something that stretches it out, makes it less expensive. So really, basically, if you can eat it, it has probably been in a sausage at one point. But yeah, that definitely does include the parts of meat that we don't want to talk about.
We have, at the university that I work at, there is a very excellent culinary program. And if you know the chef and you're like on his good side, you can get invited to finals week. And I got invited to finals week this week, which is great. Except for they were like, "Do you want to come to finals week?" I was like, "Absolutely," because I've heard a lot about this finals week. And they go, "Just so you know, sometimes it gets weird." And I was like, "What?" And the chef's like, "Yeah, the instructor's really mean. He'll give them like bull testicles or like tongue or something like that."
There you go.
Okay, I'm down. If you make it, if it's tasty, I'll eat it, I guess.
Can we get a follow-up after finals week about what happened?
Yes, please.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Take pictures and take notes.
Okay, cool. They're currently in the midst of doing like a chocolate sculpture competition in Albuquerque, and I got to see the sculptures before they left, and it was amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, you sent me those pictures. Those are pretty great.
Yeah, it was incredible. There's a really cool one of Shiva. I love it.
So, moving on, Joe asks, what is wheat germ?
Ooh, a good question. So wheat germ is wheat germ.
Wheat germ.
Wheat germ. Wheat germ is the embryo part of the wheat seed. So we eat the starchy part of the wheat. We take off the bran unless you get like whole wheat, non-processed kind of wheat. And I honestly, I don't really know how or if we extract the embryo, but the germ is like the part that will sprout. It is the embryo part of the seed. So we call that, we call seed more generally germplasm in the agricultural industry, and the actual germ part of it, meaning the part that will germinate, that will grow, is the embryo.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know. I honestly don't know that much about wheat processing. I'm assuming it's a byproduct of flour creation.
It's not
Similar to like wheat bran and stuff like that.
okay. Yeah, it's not germs that infect wheat.
It is not.
It's
All right.
definitely what I thought it was.
This is an interesting question because I know people make decisions sort of based on this, and so Britley asks, really would love to know all of the official ingredients that are categorized merely as artificial and natural flavoring.
So like what the ingredients are?
I guess this is, I mean, you know, you look at them, you look at a bottle, it says artificial flavoring and natural flavoring. Like what is that stuff? I don't know. Or what's the difference? What makes something artificial? What makes something natural?
Yeah, so I think the difference there is artificial is something that is created synthetically in a lab versus natural is something that is derived from a plant at some point. So like if you look at artificial sweeteners, you have things like Splenda and stuff like that. And then you have, if you look at a stevia bag, often it says like natural artificial sweetener or something like that, because stevia is actually an extract from a plant leaf. Like they take the leaf and they like pull the stevia out of the stevia plant.
Okay.
I think we're actually able, sorry, Hallie, were you saying something?
No, go for it.
I think we're actually able to find some of the exact ingredients.
Mm.
So yeah, they're the Federal Code of Regulations. It's going to be stuff like essential oils and fruit juices, spices, vegetable juice, yeast, stuff taken from the bark or bud or root of a plant. So just there is a list of the exact byproducts of a plant.
Oh, and okay, I like this bit here at the end where it says whose significant function in food is flavoring rather than nutritional.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is what Catherine was looking at. I'm gonna put this in the chat so everyone can see.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Oh, it's too big. I'm going to put it.
Well, we can probably put it in the underbar section. I don't know. Maybe not now, but after we broadcast, we can post that in the about doobly-doo thing.
We'll make sure y'all get it.
Yeah. All right. We've got another question here. How many people touch my food before I put it in my mouth? Asked Johnny.
Not very many.
So when he says food, I mean, this could be anything, I guess. Plants, meat, processed food. I don't know.
Yeah. So for a lot of different things, I am not 100% sure. Meat, I don't really know. Dairy,
Okay.
I don't really know. Eggs, I don't really know. But for horticultural crops and agronomic crops, I know a lot about this. So I actually did a really fun presentation in my master's program about strawberries and the post-harvest process for strawberries.
Yeah.
So how strawberries work is out in the field, there is one person who has a little cart. And strawberry picking is actually some of the hardest farm worker works. So some of the hardest farm worker jobs are strawberry picking. So you go out and you have a little cart and you have like everything you need, including like the clam shells that say Driscoll's on them or wherever you're getting your strawberries from. So they like pick them, sort them, clean them, and then put them into your clamshell and then onto the truck and send them immediately to a distribution center. It's very few. It's very, very few. Most of the time, the people who will definitely touch your produce are pickers, people who have to go out and pick produce. This is not always true. Tomatoes can be mechanically picked. There, I'm assuming, are other ones. I think root crops are another one that can kind of be mechanically picked. And then it kind of just depends on where your food is coming from, based on what the chain is. So I feel very confident in saying like less, like 5 or less most of the time. I don't have any numbers to back this up in terms of
Sometimes even 1 or 2, maybe.
yeah, sometimes 1, like they're definitely, absolutely. But it also depends on like where in the world your food is coming from and like how mechanized their sorting system is or their cleaning or, you know, things like that. But for the most part, it's very, very few. And with things like processed food, I think it's closer to 0. So if you buy like tomato sauce or something, no one needs to touch the tomato sauce. They can you just make it and then put it in a can, especially if you're mechanically harvesting your tomatoes. So
Okay.
yeah, and they very quickly get into boxes and stuff like that. So people might be handling your boxes and moving those around, but they're not actually moving the tomatoes or whatever it is.
Well, I think we have time for at least one more. Andy asks, how do they figure out how many calories are in something? I mean, obviously they add up the calories in the ingredients, but how do they know the calories of the ingredients?
So I think originally what they would do is they would burn different things, and you can just measure how much energy you get from that reaction.
I've heard this as well. Yeah, they would just burn something and then they measure the amount of heat given off.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do that anymore because we kind of know how much energy is in most things. So I imagine that there were a couple of NSF grants that some scientists got to like create a catalog of like, this is how much energy is in that, this is how much energy is in this. And so we can just, I mean, it's very easy to Google, you know, how many calories is in 100 grams of X. And it's very easy to find that info. Yeah. I did a research project also in my master's that was focusing, it was so weird, it was very difficult, but we tried to like trace where the nitrogen was in a system for like it was like a 5-year period, I think. And it was just like the system that we imagined in our heads. And we were like, okay, we're going to start with this amount of nitrogen. We're going to see where it goes, how much we need. And it was so interesting, very difficult. But what I found out was that if you know how much protein is in something, then you also know how much nitrogen is in there, because there's not really nitrogen in anything else in food.
There you go.
Was this the guinea pig project?
Yes. We had a farm where we farmed quinoa, beans, and guinea pigs, which is called cuy in Peru, which is where our farm was. It was 1 acre.
Was that why you went to Peru?
No.
No. You just remote farmed Peru?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we just made it up. We just kind of like said, okay, we're going to have a family of 5, and they're going to farm guinea pigs and quinoa, because it's a lot of people in Peru.
What do they do with the guinea pigs?
They eat them. They get big. They're like hefty little things. Wow. And a lot of families will just have them, if they're like smallholder farmers, they'll just have the guinea pigs kind of like run in and out, like a lot of families do for chickens in other parts of the world. So they're just like kind of an indoor-outdoor pet, and then you pick one and eat it.
Very cool. Very cool. All right.
I didn't have any guinea pig when I was in Peru because I'm allergic to guinea pigs. And I didn't think that I was allergic to the meat, but I figured I shouldn't chance it.
I mean,
I'm allergic to guinea pig dander and hair, but
right.
It wouldn't be an issue, but maybe not risk it.
I mean,
no need to ruin
I honestly wouldn't know if it turns out you were. That would have been a pretty bad trip. So I don't blame you.
Yeah. Catherine, did you have anything else about calories or anything like that? I don't know if you know more than I do.
Yeah, so what I found was that mostly what they do is they look at how much protein, carbs, fat, and then if applicable, alcohol is in something. And they know like 1 ounce of protein has X many calories. So if it has 5 ounces of protein, it has 5X calories. So it they just do it based on that. It's just a math equation. So yeah, it's fairly simple because there are only 4 categories of stuff that have calories.
That's cool. Interesting.
All right.
Awesome. Did anyone else have any other questions?
No. I mean, I did get one other question over Instagram. It was another question from Starfruit patron Lindsay, who said, how do you farm such a great beard?
That's cute.
And I mean, that's just genetics and a lot of encouragement. So.
Before we sign off, we forgot to introduce ourselves at the beginning of this thing. So do we want to introduce ourselves real quick?
You know, that's true. Yeah. Why
I
not?
just assumed everyone would know who we are.
We are very well known. Yeah.
We're famous. Hallie, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Hallie Casey. I studied and currently work in agriculture in Mexico.
My name is Chris Casey. I'm Hallie's dad, and I have not studied or worked in agriculture ever, but I find it pretty interesting some of the times.
My name is Catherine. I am Hallie's friend and producer of the show, and I have not studied agriculture or worked in it, but I also find it interesting.
Yep, and we produce a podcast, and this is us.
This is us. OneToGrowOnPod.com.
Yeah.
Or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at OneToGrowOnPod. Email us questions at onetogrowonpod@gmail.com.
There you go.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.